You're one-sided, crooked network. So let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. traveled all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
The president wants to say this. You have to let me lie without interrupting me. You have to let me lie and not push back on it. And if you don't give me that kind of coverage, then I do not like the media. And the other thing that the president does is that he substitutes himself for the country all the time. I think people really have to really be careful when they listen to him, because as an authoritarian thing, when he says that they are the enemy of the country, he really means that they are the enemy of me because they won't let me lie. When he says that people are attacking the country, he really means that they are attacking him. The substitution is a very real thing that happens with Donald Trump in the way that he communicates, and I think everybody needs to pay attention to that.
Why can't Trump take corrections, tough questions? Why can't he put proof on the table of his assertions?
Well, I think you watch the president more than anybody, and I hope everybody at this table would be honest about the fact that the president of the United States takes more tough questions on a daily basis than just about any other president in the modern era. Certainly the last one that we had. Oh, no, I think he should do this two to three times a week. This was a great interview.
Format of interviews?
Oh, no, absolutely, because the president's base and most of the country still views the mainstream media as very biased against them. They feel very demonized by the media. They feel very misunderstood by the media. They don't feel like the mainstream media.
That wasn't the question I asked. I asked, why won't he present
to try
the
to
actual proof of the thing that he's claiming?
Can I talk about that? Because that's always the comeback. Where's the evidence?
Yeah, because
the evidence is this.
If you're going to claim fraud, there should be some evidence. That's
the evidence is this. You have a California system that enables fraud to happen easily. You don't have voter ID. You have mass mail-out ballots. You have voter cards.
That's not evidence. That's
time out.
That's just a description
of
an electoral system.
It's an electoral system that's ripe for fraud.
Ripe for fraud is not fraud.
And then you have
is not fraud.
No, but then you have statistical anomalies where you have Rahman, who was third place, was getting 20% of the vote, and then the vote after the election day, she gets 40% of the vote.
So that's
a total speculation is also not proof. It is so infuriating to watch people try to make speculation into proof.
It's not speculation, that's data.
That is not data.
We're going to spend a whole segment on the California race in just a moment. So we're going to talk through some of the stuff that you're talking about there. But I actually think that we can boil it down much more simply than this. Trump falsely believes that he won the 2020 election that he lost. When he is challenged on that, he gets upset and he storms out of an interview. Explain that one.
They were talking about the mayoral race in California, and he was talking about the fraud there, the rigged election there.
Okay.
That's what they were
It's rigged? You believe it's rigged?
I do believe it's rigged.
Oh, my God. We can wrap this show up.
100% rigged.
We can wrap this show up.
He also was talking about his favorite obsession, which is 2020.
What's that?
In that exchange, he also was talking about the election that he lost in 2020.
Well, he talked about the 95%. He also got mad because he has 94%.
What's the explanation for that?
95% negative press coverage. He's sitting there in a negative press interview.
What does press conference have to do with the fact that she asked for proof of fraud?
Here's the thing about the president. When he was candidate Trump and they had the primary and he lost to Ted Cruz, the first thing he said was it was rigged. And he insisted that the state officials change the actual results of that primary. You remember that. And Ted Cruz was very upset by that because he called Ted Cruz a liar. That was 10 years ago. So to characterize this conversation without an understanding of who he has been, I think is unfair to the conversation we're supposed to be having now. He's always done this.
Caroline also suggested that Trump loves taking tough questions, but here is his very real history of not taking tough questions that he doesn't like. Listen.
Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk. It's no way to talk. I think we have enough of an interview here, Hope. Okay, that's enough. Let's go. Let's go. The only way it's not going to happen again is you have to solve the problem of the presidential rigged election of 2020.
Mr. President,
thank you very much.
One more question.
The woman that you said was a great doctor in that video that you retweeted last night said that masks don't work and there is a cure for COVID-19, both of which health experts say is not true. She's also made videos saying that doctors make medicine using DNA from aliens and that they're trying to create a vaccine to make you immune from becoming religious.
Well, maybe it's the same, maybe it's not.
Last week, well, real quick.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Hold on, because I haven't spoken. There's two different things that I think need to be addressed in the clip that we saw from the Meet the Press interview. The first is him alleging that he didn't lose the 2020 election. Trump and his team filed over 60 challenges in court and lost every single one of them. So there is no evidence that held up in court. That's number one issue. The second issue, which to me is just as horrible and needs to be discussed, is his consistent berating and insulting and ad hominem attacks, particularly against women. whether it's
Give
Kristen.
me a break.
What do you mean, give me a break? Kristen Walker this week.
It's Kristen.
Caitlin Walker,
I'm
Caitlin
sorry.
Collins last
I've
week.
worked with
The woman
Kristen
he
when I
called
worked at
Piggy.
the White
What
House.
do you give
For
me
you
a
to
break?
say
Have
that
you
you're
no
going up
shame
against
as a
another
woman
woman? No.
that we hear
Kristen
him
was
call them
tougher
ugly
on-
and piggy and
Kristen
crooked
was
and
tougher
liars
on him
and
in
stupid
that interview
and bad
than
journalists?
I have
Have
seen
you
most.
absolutely
That's
no
probably the
solidarity with
toughest
women?
interview I've
Oh
seen
my
him
God, I
face
can't believe you
to
sit
date.
here and tell
He
me to give
pushed
you a
up
break.
against
But
her
in this
because she was a
network,
tough
we hear
journalist.
him
Hold on, hold
tell
on.
our
Caroline,
journalist that
let me let
she's
her
not
finish.
fit to
She
be a
didn't finish her
journalist
thought.
because she doesn't smile. How dare you tell me to give you a break? Have
Caroline,
some shame.
Why would
don't
the
you?
president tell a woman that she doesn't smile enough when she's working, asking him a question?
Because he's an equal opportunity offender, and let's not pretend. Let me explain how the
Give me
game.
another example of
Let
him
me
telling
explain
you
how the
that.
game. Let me explain how the game works.
Give me an
because
example of him being
Let me
equal
explain how the game
opportunity
works because
with
Caitlin
that
got something out of that
particular
exchange
insult,
too.
Caroline.
The president gets a lot out of having combative exchanges with journalists. His base loves it. His poll. That's why I said he should do 2 to 3 more of these a week. His poll numbers go up. But Caitlin's getting something out of it too. So many journalists have made their careers in this country off of being combative with President Trump. Caitlin Collins included, Jim Acosta, many former people. It is all part of the game. It is all part of the
It's
theater.
not a
She's
game.
tough.
It's
She
not-
can
why is
take
it a game
But
to
the
you?
fact that you guys are going to call us a woman problem, Kristen did one of the toughest interviews I have seen someone do with the president. Up
And
to
he
date,
walked up
she
and
deserves
left
credit for
because
that.
he couldn't
But
take it.
He didn't push back.
She
She's
flew
a
all
woman.
the way to
He pushed
Wisconsin,
back. It
left,
was tough
left her, and
questions.
did
Grow up.
went to do her job. No, the guy needs to grow up. He's the president of the United States. He needs to grow up, and instead of walking out, having
many
a
interviews did
tantrum
Biden
and
do?
taking
How many interviews did Biden
and
do
how much
like
did you
that?
criticize
He never did an interview.
Okay, and Biden is back in the White House, we can discuss
That
it.
is a
The Biden is like a
that is
reflex.
separate
Jesus.
conversation
It's the truth.
than just
So the 2020 election.
Biden, blah, 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 Biden,
Guys,
blah, 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 blah,
one
blah,
at a time,
Biden.
please. Elsie, you were making
Jesus.
a point.
I get it. You want the president to look good.
I get it. You want to talk about 2020. I'm not bringing up
he
Biden.
does.
The president-
You said that
he brought it up.
I actually brought up 2015 when he started beginning the lies
You did that too.
about talking about how elections have been stolen. I was just letting you know there's a pattern here that's been 2 years long. That's why I brought that up. But to the point I'm trying to say right now is that what do you want this nation to gravitate towards? The behavior that we've seen in which you berate women, or behavior in which you learn how to negotiate with someone that you don't agree with, but you don't need to yell or get up
It's
and
not
leave
about
it out of
women.
an
It's
interview.
about
Just over 100 days of this war with Iran, and the American people oppose it. And Caroline, you're a MAGA Republican, but you oppose it too, which I think might surprise a lot of people. A Reuters poll just found 56% of Republicans say that the war is worth it. That's low, considering that Trump has, 80%, 85% support among Republicans. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me what I've known from the polling from the very beginning, which was they said, oh, all of MAGA supports this, and then there were polls that broke down and said non-MAGA. Well, let me explain what non-MAGA is. It used to be in the Republican Party, you had 2 wings. You had the MAGA wing and then the non-MAGA wing, which was like the establishment Republicans that Trump had overtaken. So these were the neocons. These were people who were very supportive of the actions that the Trump administration is taking right now. Non-MAGA now means people who have left MAGA, who have left the MAGA movement because they don't feel like this war is fulfilling the promise that the president said at his second inaugural address, which is that we will not just be judged by the battles that we win and the wars that we end, but also perhaps by the wars that we never start. So I, too, am glad that our pilots are safe. I have a lot of questions about our KC-135s that went down for the first time in American combat. I have a lot of questions about our F-15 pilots who went down over Iran, who we've still never met. We've had the astronauts at the White House. We've never heard from our F-15 pilots. It's time for us to go home. We don't need to wait for a deal. The president can have a huge political rebound by just leaving. And by the way, it's also affecting not just how the Republican Party views President Trump, but how our country is viewed on the world stage. I was just in Istanbul, Turkey, which is a NATO ally that shares a border with Iran. And I just asked people, because I'm an American and I haven't talked to people abroad about how they view our country. And I said, does this war make you respect America more or less as a global force for good? And every single person I talked to sincerely said no. They said, you've killed 165 school children. This isn't bringing us closer to peace. This doesn't help us view America in a better light. And so it's time to go. It's time to come home.
TW?
I support the idea of preventing Iran, the greatest global sponsor of terrorism, from getting a nuclear weapon. I think our men and women in uniform have performed valiantly, and they did a tremendous job in the early days of this campaign in Iran. And I don't believe the commander-in-chief, any commander-in-chief, Democrat or Republican, has the luxury of looking at political polls before they do something to defend our country. We've seen that over the decades. Wars weren't popular. They became popular when we were successful. They're privy to intelligence that we aren't. And Sabrina, to your point that you brought up earlier, when you said that a cheap drone shooting down an expensive plane, I understand that is a massive problem and unsustainable in the long term. But I think it misses the bigger point, too, that our military has a lot of capacity as well. And we're also inflicting a lot of military pain, economic pain on Iran. So I want to see it end quickly, obviously, but I think the goal of making sure they don't get a nuclear weapon and
The
we
polls
can,
are downstream from Trump's decision making, which I think is really what people are questioning. It's not that Trump should be reacting to the polls, but I think people are upset that he seemingly walked into a war without understanding the consequences, not just for the United States, but for the whole globe, for the region, for our strategic interests in the region.
I think it was, I mean, this was a war that he walked into because it was a war of choice. I mean, he made this decision. He did not lay out the case to the American public, and he could have. I mean, he could have, before he went to war on February 28th, he could have used the State of the Union to explain to the people why we need to do this, why we need to do it right now, and the imminent, quote, imminent threat that Iran posed to the American public. And to your point, last year around this time, you know, we were talking about how Operation Midnight Hammer obliterated Iran's nuclear program. So if we obliterated Iran's nuclear program, why are we going to war with Iran? And now we are, I mean, we have been talking about how long this war has dragged out for. How many more hundreds of days are we going to be sitting here? I mean, J.D. Vance says it's going to wrap up any day to maybe a few months from now. I mean, I think we can all agree we've blown past the timeline that this administration set for itself.
Yeah, I want to just make one more point on that. You are totally right. This should have been sold a lot better. There should have been a larger lead up to it. I completely am with you. But I also don't think J.D. Vance is wrong with the last bit of what he said. He said it takes a long time to get the communications going. Sure. Why? Because we took out their first and second string.
We replaced
They're on
one
their third
Ayatollah
string.
with a younger version who is a religious
And we don't know where he is.
But again,
so the question is, none of us at this table are aware of who the decision makers are, the people in the White House are.
These are strategic decisions. You could call them decisions.
I agree.
You could call them mistakes that were made in this conflict. It has not worked out well for us that we decided to take out all the people that we thought we could talk to.
Right. And
that hasn't worked out well.
That's the reason why a president's temperament is so important. You know, in the first term, it was very obvious that a lot of the moves that he was making early on was about Obama and doing things that were anti-Obama, and the deal with Iran was one of those things. And I'm not quite sure if he had a proper vetting of all the ramifications when he decided to rip up the deal, but he knew it had Obama's name on it, and that was good enough. I think we're seeing the fact that he tends to make decisions based upon how he's feeling in the moment, which is fine when you're campaigning, which might even be fine when you're endorsing someone for a primary. You're not thinking about the general election, but it's not fine when it comes to war. And the fact that he's so flimsy with it, and the fact that he talks about eradicating a 2,500-year-old civilization, I mean, it's irresponsible. And so the temperament of a president, you know, for the next time we go around, yes, we want someone who's strong. Yes, you want someone who's going to fight for the American people and all the good things. But the temperament matters in these moments.
I actually fully agree with that, and I hope, actually, that the deal that comes out of this, at the end of it, does not look like the Obama deal, but a lot better.
A new wave of strikes against Iran as talks between the two sides continue to stall. It is having an impact on the economy and even Trump's own timeline. We've blown past that so many times at this point. He's starting to show his frustration.
Well, the president is showing his frustration because the economic conditions are applying political pressure to him, but the economic conditions are applying political pressure to the Iranian regime, too. They're struggling under this blockade, which probably should have been part of the kinetic phase of these operations from the start. I'm surprised that the president called them off when he did. He said that he had spoken with his Iranian counterparts, and this promised wave of strikes, which both he and the Secretary of Defense said would be very robust and sustained and ongoing in order to create coercive conditions for diplomacy, a breakthrough in diplomacy. And then they called it back, which suggests to me that they're not going to get the kind of breakthrough that they want. They want to apply kinetic pressure to this regime, and to particularly to the IG or Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps components that are being very hardline, very recalcitrant. And yeah, this is the part of these strikes. Most of these strikes were focused on the Hormuz region. This is
you're talking about today's strikes, because actually I'm listening to you and I'm like, what you're saying could have been applied 3 months ago. It could have been applied to any number of junctures in this conflict.
The strikes on the Hormuz region. This looked like to me the beginnings of the straight clearing operation that this administration needs, because that is the last linchpin in this campaign.
But to your point, I mean, they're not really doing that. Like, they're not really going that far. Trump keeps saying that this is the last straw. If they don't do this by tomorrow, then. But then he keeps saying that over and over again. So the Iranians are basically like, okay, we'll call your bluff.
Listen, you cannot execute foreign policy by temper tantrum. That's what Trump is doing. This is constant temper tantrums because he's not getting his way. The Iranian regime isn't House Republicans. Donald Trump is not used to people who are not going to just bow to his will when he wants to. He's used to getting his way. The Iranians are a very complex, formidable opponent. They have been at this for decades, and they have patience, and they don't have a democracy where they have to answer to the political pressures of the citizenry. That's what happens when you're negotiating with an authoritarian dictatorship that's ruled by mullahs. So, you know, this is This is embarrassing for Donald Trump, and it's embarrassing for the Americans, because for us as a country, looking at the President of the United States blowing past all of these different deadlines and making these, veiled threats. CNN did a compilation, 38 times? He said we were almost there for a deal. We've got a deal. Well, it's just right around the corner. I mean, it feels like it's Transportation Infrastructure Week again. 2 weeks, it'll be 2 weeks. This is real. These are real world consequences, and the downstream effect of this, not only for our economy, but politically in this country, is, he's feeling the heat on this, and it's embarrassing.
I got to tell you, I'm less embarrassed today than I was 24 hours ago.
Are
the
you
president
really?
is actually, yes. Well, aren't you? You just said that it's, well, Terry, you just said it's really embarrassing that the president makes threats and doesn't act on them.
Yes, but this isn't a coherent strategy. This isn't a coherent strategy. Launching bombs because you can. Launching bombs because you can is not a strategy.
Going on Truth Social and saying that he's going to wipe away that civilization, that he's going to bomb the shit out of them. This is just bad. It's bad because it began, 4 months ago. It was supposed to last 2 weeks. There was supposed to be regime change. Donald Trump has found out that the Iranian mullahs are not Delcy Rodriguez in Venezuela. He's not going to find somebody that he can work with. I desperately want this to be over. I want this to be over in a way that the United States got something out of all of the pain that we have sustained for the last few months. But I fear that the Iranians have figured out that there are elections here in 5 months, and that because of the economic pressure, that then turns into political pressure, and there's elections and people want this over.
It sounds like you would like more kinetic operations, more attacks in order to get the outcome.
I want a peace deal. I actually want a peace deal, and I think this week has not been. I mean, this is a weird way to get to a peace deal, right?
I don't think so.
With Israel bombing and Iran bombing, and now the U.S.
I think that's
bombing.
precisely how you get to a peace deal.
A couple observations. One is that the people that are being negotiated with in Iran are sending a signal that is different from the people who are engaging in the strikes and wanting to continue the hostilities. It is very, very likely that after today's round, all that happened was that those people called in and said, please, we're ready, we want to talk, and we think we can convince them. The challenge is...
You realize that's been said...
challenge is,
by our count,
as my father used to demonstrate, he gave you 2 tries. And after that, there was violence.
What we need
to see is that same attitude that Billy Cooper had with child discipline with the Iranians.
But
we need to continue what was started this morning, and it needs to continue.
We are well past that. Trump has given them tries. He's called it off. He's given them more tries, called off the threats, given them more tries, called off the threats. This has happened many times at this point.
It sounds like you really want us to go forward with this kinetic action, which if that's true, sign me up.
But actually, here's what I'm going to put on the table, is I actually think that the threat of force is no longer working in this conflict.
It's Chicken Little now.
It's because now the Iranians are like, well, we'll take some blows, and we still won't have to give up our nukes. And we'll just keep going. The strait will be closed. The leverage that we have is still there, and we don't have to make a deal. So I don't think you guys keep saying more attacks, but I'm like, the attacks also are not working. So
there's also a consequence to these kinetic actions, is that we are depleting our arsenal. Our weapons are at levels that are concerning to a lot of folks in the military.
This is the reason for $1 trillion defense budget, for things like this.
This is why you don't decide to just launch bombs and get into kinetic activity when you don't have a long-term plan. This is why you don't keep our men and women deployed, forward deployed with an unlimited amount of time just because Donald Trump feels like it, and then, maybe we will, maybe we won't. This is no way to behave as commander-in-chief with something this important.
Let me just play this. This is Trump is confronted with the inflation numbers today, which are a direct result of this war. And here's how he responded, which, frankly, I will say will probably live in infamy. Listen.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it. The numbers look great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation. Oh, when the war is over?
Yes.
It's coming down.
I know you can't.
It's going to come down like a rock.
I love this.
So yeah, I mean, ad makers are busy.
Oh yeah,
they're working, but I also think that just like the promises about a deal being on the horizon, Trump's promises about the gas prices are going to fall like a rock are also being received by the American people as, just the boy who cried wolf. You're just always saying the thing over and over again. Let me let Camille have the word.
It's the messaging, and I actually have a question for you and for you, Noah. It's the messaging that is most disconcerting to me. Certainly, that response to the inflation question is disconcerting. but it's kind of a piece with the way the negotiations have been conducted. We've seen reporting in recent days about just how schizophrenic the administration has been. You've got the negotiators who are saying one thing to their counterparts in Iran, and then the president they get back to the president, and the president changes the terms on them in the last moment. To the extent you're conducting business like that, no one knows what to trust. Certainly the American people don't know what to trust when they hear from you and you say, this will be over in a matter of weeks. In fact, it's already over. We're not even at war anymore. We've already got a peace deal.
The
It's in place.
market
And it's
is
still
saying
not.
that the price
But what
of
does the
oil
president say?
is
Can you
dramatically
trust what the
lower
president
than what
says?
we see today. And
I don't know that that's
It's not
the
lower than
standard.
it was before he
That is
decided to launch the
standard.
war.
And
That's the
normally
standard
it's
here.
inversed.
Camille, it is funny, though. I agree that the president's rhetoric is probably the worst part of his approach to this war, and I'll sign on to any critique of his approach rhetorically. But it is funny, what you just described is he's changing the terms, what have you, he's mercurial. That's precisely how the Iranians negotiate. Aragachi, foreign minister, wrote in his book that the Iranian Bazari style of negotiation is just to be intractable and to change the terms on you and to exhaust you to the point where you give up concessions.
So this is strategic.
I
not
don't think it's
schizophrenic.
strategic. I think it's driving them as crazy as it's driving us, which is the Iranian style, and it's probably driving the Iranians
So
crazy.
then you would
too.
admit then it's
both
folly
sides-
that Trump thought this was
it's
going to be
not
over in
folly.
like 2 weeks.
And
No,
it's
wait a
not
minute.
folly.
Trump thought this was going to be over in
And
like
if
2
both
weeks.
sides are being schizophrenic and let's just use your word and putting, basically putting things on the table, taking them back. I mean, that does not seem to be a recipe for a deal.
It's not a recipe for a deal, but the deal should be one that is commensurate with our strategic objectives. And by all accounts, the Iranians weren't putting anything on the table that was commensurate with our strategic objectives.
I agree.
We're engaged in coercive diplomacy now. That's what you call this
right.
sort of thing. And Tara, I will concede that the president shouldn't have given himself a window because you never know how operations are going to unfold once you start. And he was sacrificing tons of political
He
capital by
was on
saying
a,
something
he was on a
and not
sugar
doing it.
high from Venezuela.
But now he's doing something, so you cannot say that he's sacrificing credibility while he's doing exactly what
What
he
do
said
you
he would
mean
do.
now he's doing
Right.
something?
What's the
What is he
plan?
doing
Today's
now?
attack.
What's the
He's
plan?
executing attacks on Iranian targets
To
in
what
response to the end, as I understand it, is to force the Iranians to come to the negotiating table in earnest
It's
with
not working.
genuine
He's done this
concessions.
already multiple times, and it hasn't worked. He decimated them.
24 hours. Donald Trump's interim pick for National Intelligence Director may soon be out of a job after facing bipartisan backlash for selecting Bill Pulte, who has no national security experience. Today, Trump announced that he'll be nominating U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton for the role. I have questions about whether this is actually even going to resolve the problem for Trump, because Clayton's going to get a look. He's going to get a look from Republicans and from Democrats. But if he puts Pulte in there to start messing around at DNI, that could still be a problem.
I agree with that, and we'll have to see how the members of Congress react to that possibility. I think the Senate will have a hearing for Clayton on either June the 16th or 17th, and Pulte is scheduled to start on the 19th. So it's a tight time frame. Senator Thune said today it would be hard to get him confirmed that quickly, but they were going to do everything they could. Interestingly, I think if the president had made this announcement last night, it might have saved him some grief on the House floor today, because it would have shown that he was being responsive to some of the concerns. But the real disaster here is going dark on FISA. I mean, not being able to pay attention to what these foreign terrorists would like to do to the United States is a national security emergency.
So it doesn't. So actually, FISA doesn't go dark. It doesn't actually go dark until March of 2027. There are authorities that are in place, and they can still collect information.
Why does every
for the
article
next
say
year.
it goes dark tomorrow?
That is the way that it currently works. I've talked to national security officials. It doesn't actually go dark right away. There is an apparatus in place for them to collect information. The reason why 702 and FISA, the reason why this is so important right now when it comes to Pulte is Pulte does not have any national security experience, and the role of DNI is 702, is FISA. And the fact that we would be entrusting him with a critical national security tool raises a lot of questions, and it should raise a lot of questions with Congress immediately. He should not be in that position in the first place at all, any days serving. I understand that there's someone else that's new that's going to come in and that will be able to be confirmed and has some sort of national security experience. But the reality is that there is a big fear that a political hack like Pulte will be. He's absolutely. He's absolutely. It doesn't matter.
I would also say this.
It doesn't matter if President Trump trusts him. That's actually the problem. The problem is that he does President Trump's bidding, and he has been the person who has gone after President Trump's enemies. The statute says that the person to be nominated and to be at DNI needs to be someone with a national security background, and Pulte has zero national security experience. Zero.
Yeah, Jay Clayton's a great guy. He's going to do a great job as DNI. Jay Clayton and I debated at the Harvard Club.
Pulte is what she was saying.
Pulte has no national security experience. He should not be in the building ever.
And I will say this, Jay Clayton's going to do a great job. Jay Clayton and I debated Democrats in 2024 at the Harvard Club, and we won against the Democrats. He's a terrific guy, and he does have
what does that have to do with this?
Okay, well, is it 100% like they can keep? Because to me, that actually changes the conversation here. If it's true that these authorities still exist for several months on
Yes.
data collection,
Yes.
that actually makes me feel a little better because I've been under the impression that this was sort of a deadline emergency.
Yes, they are allowed to collect some information. It doesn't just go dark overnight.
Let me play just on the question of Clayton and why Trump might have thought, okay, maybe I can work with this guy. Here's an interaction that he had earlier this week on CNBC. And strangely, it's about California's election practices. He's in the Southern District of New York, but he's talking here about California. Listen.
Can you give me an idea of what's happening in California right now?
No, I actually can't, which I think is the problem. On the integrity side, we're doing an absolutely terrible job. And the American people are right to question it. How come we can have an audit trail in every other aspect of our lives that's important?
Here's the issue. California's election law allows ballots
30
postmarked
days,
by election day. I mean, that doesn't sound like fraud. That you can argue whether the law makes sense, but that doesn't sound like a fraudulent situation.
No, there's a great phrase, opportunity for fraud.
One of the things we know about what Trump wanted Bill Pulte to do was to investigate what he calls election fraud, which is based on, frankly, no evidence and lies. So to hear Jay Clayton say that, kind of out of the blue, frankly, it seems to be music to Trump's ears in this moment.
I mean, I think that Jay Clayton is light years better in terms of qualification than Bill Pulte. And I think that's where we are. I mean, I think the bar was really low with Bill Pulte. I think that you clearly articulated why he should not be in that position. Having no national security experience and being DNI, I mean, it sounds like Tulsi Gabbard, right? So we didn't want to go down that path.
She was a military officer.
Yeah,
for goodness sake.
well, she was, and you know what's crazy?
Low.
The bar is low, and I mean, member of Congress doesn't get you too far. But I will say that she was more qualified than Bill Pulte. So thank you for helping me make my point. I think there's more of a political salient point as well, that I just think that as we go through this primary cycle and Donald Trump continues to check off these primary victories, right, and choosing individuals, we're seeing that at large he's losing his grip of power in Washington, D.C., because there are individuals who are now willing to buck the president of the United States. I think you saw that today. I think you wouldn't have necessarily seen that 4, 5, 6 months ago. I mean, during the break, we were talking about senators that are uncontrollable. That number of senators is growing exponentially. I mean, now you have one of the more powerful senators in Washington, D.C., who is simply not going along with it, who is Cornyn.
Just to your point, here's what Cornyn said in a new interview. He said, I think it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride for the next 7 months, he says. Give some of us a little freedom and certainly leverage. He says, we've got some cards to play.
I mean, McConnell, Cornyn, Tillis, that's 3 votes. Cassidy. Oh, yeah, that's 4 votes. That's 4 votes that the president simply cannot just wave his magic wand and say simply come to the White House and vote this way or tweet about them, because they could give a care less. And so I think that the way that the governance is going to happen over the next year, and this is actually the most important issue we're probably going to talk about, which is FISA, the role of FISA, you know, what happens to it with the World Cup happening, all of these things about safety and security. This is probably the most important issue facing the American public. And right now we have some independence within the Republican Party, which is something I couldn't say even 4 months ago.
Some breaking news tonight. President Trump's name is coming down from the Kennedy Center building. It is pretty extraordinary. I had to chuckle because I was reading the court filing by DOJ as they tried to convince the court to allow them to keep the name up. And they changed the bylaws of the Kennedy Center to basically say that any money that they received while that name was up there was contingent on Donald Trump's name being on the Kennedy Center, which is a living memorial to the former president. And the court filing says the reason for this clause is that people and companies who have given or will be giving millions of dollars to the center were only willing to do so with the name Trump on the building. Many did it because they loved the concept of 2 great presidents, one Republican, one Democrat, working together as one, in many ways, a bipartisan relationship, ! Not sure if Donald Trump has started working at the Justice Department, but yeah, I mean, it's almost comical if it didn't actually happen.
So I'm going to just be a lawyer for a second. The reason why this is a great moment in history, what's going on, that his name is coming down, is that the judiciary has no real power to make sure people do what they say. So right now, President Trump can say, no, nothing's coming down. And the judge has nothing. The judge doesn't have an army. The judge doesn't have any power to do anything. So this is our government actually working. When the judiciary uses the power of a pen, nothing more than the power of a pen saying, no, you can't do this, and everyone is following the judge's order, that's a great American moment that the government is working. The 3 branches of government are working the way they're supposed to.
actually agree with him, but I also think that when you look at
It's okay, you're allowed to. You said it like, holy cow, I actually agree with you. You're allowed to agree with me.
It's 10:06. I just got started.
Okay,
he hasn't said anything.
I didn't even get a complete sentence out. I love you.
It was the tone. It was the tone.
Yes, I agree with you. You're right 3 or 4% of the time. So you're not going to agree with this part. What I was going to say is I believe this is just indicative of what the Trump presidency will be. You have an individual who has what most people would agree to have a heavy dose of psychopathy that is rooted in some sense of self that is not necessarily rooted in anything. So he wants his name on buildings. He wants his picture on dollar bills. He wants those type of things. And when Donald Trump is gone, I do believe that many of the things that he deems to be accomplishments, those superficial things, without changing the lives for the better of the American people, will come down and will be erased. And so this is going to be the first, although this is something that individuals can see, not just with their mind's eye, but they can literally see with their eyes, that name coming down. I think that there's going to be a lot of scrubbing from the history books of Donald Trump's name, the things that Donald Trump has done, and the things that won't be expunged are things like impeachment.
You know what? I think it's an important point that this for liberals is sort of like a celebratory moment. But I think it is emblematic of one of the big problems with this Trump second term. He is expending a huge amount of energy, self-aggrandizing in the office. He was elected to lower prices, make people's lives better. Instead, he's calling into meetings, according to CNN's reporting, that according to a source, it was like an episode of Veep. He's calling into meetings at the Kennedy Center to talk to them about this issue, to attack the judge's wife, who was a former attorney for Joe Biden at one point. Then the board says, oh, maybe they'll make a resolution to honor Trump that would recognize his major contributions. What is all of this about? I mean, is the entire government supposed to be working to make this one man feel good about himself?
Well, are we upset that the President of the United States took an interest in the Kennedy Center, took an interest in a building?
A lot of people are upset about that, yes.
But why? Why would they be upset about it? Now, I'll answer my own question. Because they've never been able to stand the fact that Donald Trump won the White House the first time and especially the second time.
I have an alternative explanation.
They don't want
how
him to be able
about,
to exercise
how about
any power,
Congress
large or small.
establish the Kennedy Center as a memorial for John F. Kennedy, and that it is illegal for him to slap his name on it? That is why people are upset
Look,
about
here's
it.
the deal. He took an interest in this.
What about the law, Scott?
Well, what about it? He took an interest in it. What about it? Who cares? Let me tell you what I see.
Well,
Here's what I see.
We're abiding by the law.
You can't get the government on the phone after 3 o'clock on a Friday, yet we can build scaffolding to scrape a name off the side of a building.
They build scaffolding to put a
honestly,
name on the side of
this
the
is what the
building. They
government
can't
can do.
build
And what is it the
scaffolding to
Democrats
take
do for
down?
fun on a Friday night? These haters stand out on the street screeching about a name?
Wow, haters.
Unbelievable.
To your point about it is against the law, I want to give a shout out to Representative Joyce Beatty. I think that she actually tells the story that when she was on she's a member of the board, and there was a meeting, and she wasn't there, and she called in virtually, and this was not on the agenda to change the name or add Donald Trump's name to the Kennedy Center, and she tried to speak up against it. When she found out about it, she said she was shocked. They muted her. They wouldn't allow her to talk. She then actually filed the lawsuit to stop this. And on May 29th, we now find out that this is when the judge said, you know what, you're right, take it down. And I just want to give her a shout out for one particular reason. When they tried to shut her down, she said it wasn't about me, it was about arts. And it's bigger than this, and it wasn't fair. And she was the only one that had enough cojones to say chutzpah.
Testicular fortitude.
Testicular fortitude. Thank you, friends. To say, you know what? It's not right, and someone should do something about it. She said Donald Trump was on the meeting when she was actually trying to object, and he was trying to intimidate her with looks, and she still went ahead. So shout out to her for saying something is wrong, let's do something about it, and it should do something for all of us Americans who feel like we're not happy
Us
with
New
what's
Yorkers
going
are
on.
not surprised that Donald Trump is putting his name on everything. I mean, it's just like, it's laughable for us. I mean, his name is everywhere. I've gone to a Trump grill, and Abby, I've never seen this before. I ordered a hamburger, and on the bun, God bless him.
Burger?
And on the bun, they char it with his profile. Like, so I'm eating President Trump.
Not even the name.
But you know what? I'm with Scott too. Like, you're gonna have very little going on in your life on a Friday night that you're standing in front of the thing whistling. I mean go watch Heavy Film on CNN. Do something productive.
I mean, you can argue that that's the case, but these are also American citizens. Maybe they care about the law. Yeah. Maybe they care about. Maybe they care about. Maybe they care about what the judge said is the plain text of the law. The quote: the Kennedy Center's organic statute makes it crystal clear that the center is to be named for President Kennedy.
Following the law.
Congress gave the center its name. Only Congress can.
Can we also acknowledge that since its inception, the Kennedy Center has been a place where the arts have flourished.
Yeah.
It has not been a place of partisan politics.
At all. Has
Nobody
nothing to
ever
do with
said
it.
we're going to go to the Kennedy Center because John F. Kennedy was a great Democrat. No one ever says that.
No one
They
ever.
go to celebrate the arts.
They go to show Melania the movie at the Kennedy Center.
Sure.
That's where it previewed.
Well, you know,
That's where it
speaking,
premiered.
speaking of that,
Congratulations.
Bakari, the Park Service has also been in the crosshairs of this administration. And just tonight, a judge ruled that they have to reinstall signs and exhibits at the national parks about topics like slavery and climate change. These are exhibits that had been removed, like, for example, in the National Historic Park in Philadelphia that had an exhibit about slavery, at Fort Sumter in South Carolina that had an exhibit about climate change, at the Acadia National Park that had an exhibit about indigenous people. So they're going to have to put it back, according to this judge, at least for now.
What we're seeing in real time, which is good for me, is that you can no longer create your own narrative. This administration has a history of doing that and erasure. And so right now people are saying, and I don't know, of course they're going to push back and they will appeal. I'll leave it to the attorneys to talk about it. But I like the idea of someone saying you can't create your own history in real time. And when we talk about the Kennedy Center, I have said this on the show before, him putting his name on that living memorial is like someone else putting their name on someone else's tombstone. It is, outside of it being illegal, it's such a level of disrespect. And it shows that, would he want anyone to do that to him? Imagine the Donald Trump Center and someone comes on and another president.
The author of Donald Trump Center.
Correct.
There we go.
There,
I like
sounds
that.
great.
I like the sound of that.
Who can forget, by the way, at the Great Battle of Fort Sumter, when they were all arguing about the future of climate change, and they were just couldn't come to an agreement over climate change, and the cannonballs started flying. I mean, what a joke!
The crazy
climate change.
The crazy
at the Battle
part.
of Fort Sumter.
The crazy part about the Battle of Fort Sumter off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina, is what people do remember that some of the first slaves